he told us that we had to تؤدي الأمانات إلى أهلها, to give the amanat to its people. That's one of the signs of the believer, right? The believer gives trust that have been entrusted with him to those who own the trust. So if you're given a trust and somebody tells you, I'm doing this, I'm entrusting you with this, but this is mine. I'm entrusting it with you, but this is mine. The mu'min is the one, yu'min comes from the same root of amana. La imana, meaning la amanata lahu. He has no iman, the one who has no amana. Allah has given us a trust. Inna sam'a wal basar wal fu'ada kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula. Those things, the sight, the sound, the hearing, and the heart itself, which generates all of the actions of the other limbs, you are mas'ul. In other words, the amanat that Allah has put you in responsibility for. And you have to bring back the amana on Yawm al-Qiyamah. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. He brings back the amana sound. He hasn't destroyed it. قَدْ خَالَ مِنْ دَسَّاهَا. Right? He's been destroyed, the one who pollutes this trust that Allah has given you, because the nafs is a trust. And like that, children are a trust. Your children are amana. Right? So these are all trust Allah has given you. And fasting, Allah is teaching us how to honor the trust and give it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way Allah wants it, which is, He wants your tongue to be free of slander. Kidib, namina, ghiba, zur, all these things. He wants it to be free of that. He wants your ears to be free of hearing the haram. He wants your eyes to be free of seeing the haram. He wants your hands to be free of doing anything haram, your feet to be free of going anywhere haram, and your genitals free of going to a place that's haram, and your stomach free of taking in, imbibing anything or eating anything that's haram. That's what Allah wants. He wants us to protect these trusts that He's given us, and the way He's teaching us to do that is fasting. This is the madrasa to learn these things. And then finally, the fasting of the elect of the elect. And he says, it is the صوم القلب عن همم الدنية والأفكار الدنيوية. It is the fasting of the heart on low aspirations, from low aspirations, or from worldly thoughts. So in other words, the fasting of the elect is that your aspiration is not for dunya. And that's why in Ramadan, infaq, because giving out is for akhirah. Whereas in the other months you're busy trying to acquire wealth, in Ramadan you should be busy trying to get rid of wealth for the sake of Allah. You're not in a dunya mode, you're in a akhirah mode, right? You're in an akhirah mode. You have to change. In this month you have to change the way you're thinking. And then, afkar ad-dunyawiyah, one of the things about the people, one of the scholars of Andalusia said that the first degree of wilayah with Allah is muhasabat al-khawatir, is to begin to take thoughts to account, right? And that's the beginning of it. Yazin al-khatira bil-qistasi, that he begins to measure the thought based on the mizan of the sharia. That's what the wali does, and that's why he's a wali. Ramadan is a time to do muhasabah of your heart. In other words, if you begin to think about things that are dunyawi things, because you don't want to be, none of us want to be with Allah an ammi. In Arabic, ammi means suqi, right? Do you say that in Iraq? Suqi? Suqi? They say that in Sham? Suqi. Somebody who's like, their himna is in the marketplace. You have to rise above that. And the thing about Islam, an ammi does not mean that, there's a lot of scholars that think because they're learned, they're not awam. But they're awam, because the ammi can be the street sweeper who only knows fard ayn and knows a few surahs from the Quran, but his heart is with Allah. You see, and that's why he asked, how many people are not fasting, but with Allah they're fasting? And how many people who are fasting, but with Allah they're not fasting? Because there's people during the year who they're guarding their eyes, their ears, their tongue, their feet, their genitals, their stomach, so in reality they're doing the purpose of fasting, because fasting is just an exercise to learn how to do it properly. Whereas other people, they're fasting physically, but with Allah they're not fasting. So that's the point. So when he's talking about the khususi, don't think that's somebody who knows Imam Sibari's Al-Kitab and he's a great grammarian, or he knows all the tafasir, or he knows... That's not what he's talking about. These people can be almost illiterate if the heart is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, look at Imam Sahnun. Muhammad bin Sahnun, who's the son of Sahnun who wrote the Mudawwana, he had a majlis in Al-Qayrawan. And in this majlis, every day, he said a man would come into the majlis and walk over people's shoulders and go up to the Sheikh. He was teaching in a chair, and he'd start whispering into his ear for a while, and then he would leave. And he was doing this every time the Sheikh would teach. The Sheikh actually told people to move away so that he wouldn't have to go over there helping out. One day the man stopped coming. And Imam Sahnun, Muhammad bin Sahnun, asked some of the people, where's that man who used to come here every day? And they said, we don't know. And he asked somebody to go find him. He found him, and he came, and he said, what happened? You stopped visiting me. And the man said, Subhanallah, you know, I have to explain myself. Some people who envy you, I'm a very poor man, and I have a lot of daughters that I need to get married. Some people who envy you, because he was a qadi, and they came to me and said, go and bother him every day in his majlis, and if you can make him angry and humiliate him in front of all his students, we'll give you money so you can marry your daughters. So I used to come every day, and I would curse you in your ear, and I would say all those horrible things, and I realized it wasn't having an effect on you, and so I just gave up. And Muhammad bin Sahnun said, why didn't you just come and ask me for some money? Yeah, I would have given you. But I mean, that's where you want, that's the thing that you want to learn from fasting, is that is the sabr of the people of the Messenger of Allah. That's the sabr of the family, that's the sabr of Salman minna al-Bayt. You know, Salman's from our family. Salman lived, he was patient. He was a Zoroastrian. He used to see them blowing out, the fire would get blown out, and they'd light it, and then they'd tell the worshippers it never goes out. And his father was in charge of it, so he knew it was a lie. So he wanted to find where it was. He went to the Christians. He was with a monk serving him for years, and he saw the monk stealing all the people's money and burying it in his backyard. And then he went to another monk, and he was actually a good monk. He told them that there's a prophet in the end of time coming to Yathrib. And that's where he went, and he had the sign. But the thing is, he was patient through this entire journey. He was just seeking the truth. Yeah? And if you look at the patience of the Prophet ﷺ all through that tribulation that we saw, that is what fasting really is about learning how to control the heart and gaining this ability. So, basically, in terms of this month, here's my suggestion to myself, first and foremost.
You said that you should refrain from masturbation. I thought masturbation was completely wrong.
Yeah, you should. I'm saying in Ramadan that would break the fast. That's all I was saying.
I thought it was haram anyway.
I know, but so is lying, and people lie, and so is, people do things that are haram. There's a khilaf about it anyway. According to the Malikis, the dominant opinion is that it's prohibited. According to Ahmad ibn Hanbal, it's considered mubah without any fantasizing. He considered it like hijama or something like that. So it's a khilafi issue, but I was just using that because some people might think that fasting is just from sexual relations with somebody else, but it includes that. So any type even tafakkur, right, fantasizing, that would lead to that. All of that's haram. So anyway, during this month, and then inshallah I'm going to close this on, there's a group of people that's leaving at 2:30, but during this month, my recommendation to myself and all of you is don't do a lot of talking. Utilize the time. Everybody should be appreciating that, all the other Muslims. Don't waste your time. This is a month that the Salaf used to, for 6 months before Ramadan, they would beg Allah to let them see the next Ramadan, and then 6 months after Ramadan, they would beg Allah to accept the previous Ramadan. So this is not a time like other times. We all have to understand that. And the other thing is, none of us knows if this is our last Ramadan. And none of us even knows will we make it to the end of this Ramadan. So this is seize the moment. You need to utilize this time, all of us. Don't let the month pass and then the last few days and you're regretting, I should have done more. I mean, we'll do that anyway, but hopefully it won't be as bad as some people who will have done very little. I mean, hopefully we'll do a lot, and still there's going to be a sense that we didn't do enough, because human beings, Imam al-Ghazali said, the greatest proof of the deficiency of man is that he never does anything except that he realizes afterwards he could have done it better than anything. So, I mean, there's always improvement. But the point is, utilize the time, utilize the night, right? Take some portion of the night. It's mandub to do khatam of the Quran in the Taraweeh, but even one surah is effectual. So even if you did your Taraweeh with Qul Huwallahu Ahad, if that's all you know, and you did your rakats, that counts as Qiyam al-Layl. So you want to do the Qiyam every night. Even if you're going to just do 20 rakats with Qul Huwallahu Ahad, do Qiyam al-Layl. In fact, Yabd al-Khadim says, towards the end of time, it's good to do night prayers with like Qul Huwallahu Ahad, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا, the surahs that have a lot of reward mentioned in them, just because there's so little time, and most people don't have the himmah to do a lot anymore. So utilize the time. Try to do the duha prayer, right? So, I mean, basically try to get up before the Fajr, do some qiyam before Fajr, and then utilize the time after Fajr. Try not to sleep after that time. It's makruh in any case, but in Ramadan we should be gaining that time even more so than other times. And then try to do the duha. The Prophet ﷺ told Abu Huraira to do the duha, not to leave it ever. And so you should try to do it. It's a mandub, and it's a very strong, it has strong madad, because the Prophet did do it continuously, 2, 4, 6, or 8 rakats before the zawal, all the way up to the zawal. For the Malikis and the Hanafis, they have during the time of the Hajjara, that they can't pray the Nafilah. And then prayer on time. Prayer on time should be any time. Imam Malik radiyallahu anhu relates in the Muwatta, إِنِّي لَأَرَى مِنْ أَهَمِّ أُمُورِكُمُ الصَّلَاةِ. The most important of all your prayers is your prayer. فَمَنْ حَافِظَهَا وَحَافِظَ عَلَيْهَا فَقَدْ حَافِظَ دِينَهُ. Whoever guards it and is vigilant about its times has guarded his deen. وَمَنْ ضَيْعَهَا فَهُوَ لِمَا سِوَاهَا أَضِيعَ. Whoever is negligent of it, then he's negligent more so about other affairs in his life. So prayer, and then we heard earlier that the Messenger of Allah on his deathbed, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his wasiyah to his ummah, as the last words were as-salah, as-salah. Prayer is over everything. Guard your prayer, and use this time to discipline yourself to be praying on time. Right? Really use it to discipline yourself. If you weren't praying on time before Ramadan, and you should have been, but if you weren't, then use this time to discipline yourself to pray on time. If you're working, just stop. Because your prayer is more important than your job. I guarantee you. Prayer is more important than your job. Do your prayer. And then, particularly the time between Asr and Maghrib is a very strong time throughout the year. It's the time of dhikr, but during the time, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خَسْرٍ. It's a very special time. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Except for the people who believe. It's a time of loss for other people. And that's why in this culture you see people at the end of the day, they're worn out. They have to go drink, and they call it happy hour in this culture. Right? No, seriously, they call it happy hour. They go and have to have oblivion so that they don't have to think about how meaningless their lives are. That's a time when we're preparing for sunset, which means death for us. Sunset is a metaphor for death. And Asr, from Asr to Maghrib, that's your later years in the lives of man. That period is representative of, and the fasting, breaking the fast, is like the messenger, لِلصَّائِمِ فَرْحَتَانِ. There's two joys. فَرْحَةٌ عند إفطاره, a farha when he breaks his fast, وَفَرْحَةٌ عند لقاء ربه, وحين يلقى ربه. So there's an analogy being made there that the breaking of the fast is similar to meeting your Lord. In other words, when the day is over and death is over, you go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then after you break your fast, the best thing, break it on rutab or tamar or hasawat min al-ma. If you don't have any of that on anything, you can just break the fast. If there's no food around, then you pray anyway. And the delaying of it is only makruh if it's delayed out of thinking that it's better, right? Then it becomes a bid'ah. But if you had a valid reason to delay breaking the fast, then it's perfectly fine. But don't eat before you pray Maghrib. And if you go to Muslim houses, a lot of times they'll ask you, do you want to eat first or pray? Tell people, let's pray first. Really, don't be shy about that, because people will eat and the prayer, Maghrib, goes out of the time. Right? Maghrib is a very short time window, and you don't want to delay it, because it's most of the ulama are that it's a daruri time, right? After it comes in, time for adhan, to do wudu, to find a pure place, khalas. During the fasting, you're given a little window of breaking the fast with dates and water. Do the dua, right? Allahumma laka sumtu, wa bika amantu, wa ala rizqika aftartu, faghfir li ma qaddamtu wa ma akhartu ya rabbil alameen. And then when you finish it, ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. That's a good thing to do. If you eat at somebody's house, أفطر عندكم الصائمون وصلت عليكم الملائكة وأكل طعامكم الأبرار وصلت عليكم الملائكة وذكركم الله في من عنده. These are good things to learn and to practice them and to learn the du'as. And then the Isha prayer, if you have a strong azima, then it's better to pray in your house. In other words, if you're going to do night prayers, it's better to pray in your house. If you don't have a strong azima and you know yourself, or there's a muqri who's going to do khatam of Quran, and you want to do the khatam with it's mandub, right? Yundabu khatmuha. So if you want to do the khatam in the masjid, that's a good thing also. Avoid what unfortunately a lot of our brothers are afflicted with, is this idea that the Taraweeh is only 8 rakats. And so they say, after the 8 finishes, they say, alhamdulillah, we're following the sunnah, right? And then they go outside and talk for the next hour, right? Outside, abwab al-masjid. Just admit, I'm lazy, or hey, it's really 20s long for me, but don't start justifying, sunnah, brother, I'm following sunnah. Because sunnah is not to sit around at the door of the masjid and talk. I guarantee you that. The Prophet ﷺ did not waste his time. An empty talk at the door of the masjid that's suqah. I mean, that's amni, really. And we don't want to be part of that. And don't belittle people, don't look down on people. I'm not, don't want to get judgmental about people. Everybody's where they're at for whatever reason. But the point is, don't see yourself as better than them. But thank Allah that He hasn't afflicted you with that affliction, because it's an affliction. And when the Prophet saw afflicted people, he said, Alhamdulillah alladhi afani mimma tarakum bihi wa faddalani ala kathiran mimman kharaqa tafdila. That's not arrogance to recognize a ni'mah that Allah has given you. It's arrogance when you think that you deserve it more than they do. Because it's just a fadl that Allah has given you for whatever reason. And He knows. And He knows, أعوذ بالله, نسأل الله الثبات والختم الحسن, that He could take that away from you and give your state to that person or better, and put you there sitting at the door of the masjid talking. And one of the men who accused Mu'adh ibn Jabal of doing something haram, he made a dua against him, and Mu'adh was mustajab al-dua. He was known for that. And this man was seen in his old age pinching girls on the streets of Medina with his, they said his eye over his eyes had fallen over. You know, like the eyebrow had literally fallen over his eyes. And he'd like pinch, and that was an ibtila that Allah gave him in his old age for falsely condemning Mu'adh ibn Jabal. So, you know, I don't want people to get self-righteous or anything like that, myself included. But the point is, don't really, if people are talking, you know, greet people. It's a joyous time. It's a time that we should do that. And then the other thing to remember is our brothers and sisters who are in great tribulation now. The people of Palestine, the people of Iraq, the people of Algeria, the people of Bosnia, the people of India. I could go on and on and on, and I don't want to. Those people really are suffering, and so temper your joy with some gravity as well. So one of the things about light that I learned a long time ago, and I think it's really true, is that sometimes a people's reaction to a lot of spiritual light is to get giddy and laugh and get frivolous. Right? And you can see that in people. And it's a way of spilling light. And Ramadan can do that to people. They'll get, because there's so much light, that they'll end up kind of like laughing the whole month. And seriously, I'm really mean this. People will end up like just kind of spending it, having a good time. And what they're doing is because they haven't learned how to contain, the benefits, they just spill it all out. Right? So try to contain the benefits of that. I think we're going to, is the bus here? Is that class going to go?
Yes, you supposed to do the adhkar of the evening.
Yeah, I'm going to come back after the Dhuhr. After the Asr. But are they going to leave now? Okay, then what I'll do before we pray, because there's still a little bit more time, I wanted to read from the section on fasting from the Muwatta for the barakah of it. And, what's that? Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. The other thing, Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, during Ramadan, he did not like storytelling and he said this is a time of qiyam and qira'ah. So the best dhikr during Ramadan is Qur'an. That you should still do the sabah and masa. Those are really important to do in Ramadan as well as any other time. But you should have your wird of Qur'an. Imam Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu said that Qur'an, if you read it at least twice a year, then you're not considered jasi. In other words, there's an ayah in the Qur'an, where Allah, the Messenger of Allah complained about إِنَّ قَوْمِ اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا, that his people have just neglected or left the Qur'an. And Ramadan is a time where we should be trying to spend a lot of time with the Book of Allah, and so preferably if you can do more than one khatam, that would be good. There are people, and I know somebody personally, that he did, I think, 26 khatam in Ramadan. But that's mostly what he was doing. Obviously people that are working and things like that, so it's difficult, to do that. If you're not as proficient with it, there's also the listening to the muqri, if you have the tape. In other words, when you're driving, if you don't memorize a lot of Quran, it's better to read when you memorize. but when you're driving. But if you don't, then just listen to the Quran, the recitation, and also do some tadabbur of the Quran during Ramadan. In other words, don't just do the ta'abbud of it, but do some tadabbur. If you can do, there's a 7-day word of the Quran which is reading. It goes 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and then the mufassal. You read the first 3 surahs and for the first day, and then the first 3, and then the 5, the next 5 surahs, and then the next 7, and then the next 9, and then the 11, and then 13, and then the mufassal. So in 7 days you could finish. The mufassal is from Abasa to the end of the Quran, or Hujarat. And with the 13 I think it goes to, not Abasa, Qaf. So the point is that's the way a lot of Salaf did the Quran. They would do it by the odd 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13 mufassal, like that.
From that you had mentioned in the past, can you still make nafil salah?
I wouldn't pray, if you are a fard, I would not pray tarawih. You should do the fard. Use it as a time to gain all your fard back. Yeah, I would do, instead of qiyam, do all the fard. Because if you owe prayers, in Hanbali madhab they don't make them up. Right? But Maliki and Hanafi and Shafi'i do. If you owe prayers, then you have to, in the Maliki madhab you'd only do witr and the raghiba. You do the witr prayer and the pre-dawn prayer. Other than that you do, and you should do, according to al-Akhbari, if you do less than 5 at every prayer, then you're mufarrat throughout the year. If you owe prayers and you do less than 5, then you're mufarrat. You're not doing enough.
Less than 5 with every prayer?
Yeah, with every prayer. And what you should do is do the minimal amount. That if you owe a lot, if you don't owe that many, I wouldn't do this. If you owe a lot, like years, then do the minimal amount for the prayer to be valid. Alright? It's a debt that you owe, and inshallah Allah will accept the...
I think, in light of what the brother was speaking of, if you're in a situation like you say you owe a lot of prayers, what would one do if he doesn't remember something?
Then what the ulama say is that you should do the best to estimate. In other words, if you left the prayer, say, you remember that you were 17 or something like that. People should know around when they stop praying, hopefully. It probably is a point they've started going seriously astray in their life, so that should be, most people remember when they go astray.
Can you clarify what you meant by the minimum?
By the minimum prayer, in other words, what you should do is do the arkan and the basic sunan that are mu'akkada, right? And that's it. So there's, the 16 arkan and the 8 sunan mu'akkada, and
Also, like if you're learning Sheikh and then you have a doubt about the prayers you've done in the past, about whether you were making mistakes.
Yeah, I think, you just I know there's some people that would say you should make them up, and I think that you just, if you're learning fiqh now, then that's something you just make tawbah and ask Allah. If in other words you had a fard ayn that you didn't learn, and now you're learning it, I would just, ask Allah to forgive you. Some people, for a lot of Muslims, they were not aware that fard ayn was an obligation. In other words, their parents never told them. They really didn't know. And so in a sense, this is an ithm that really is going back, right? Because a Muslim the child is an amana, and one of the amanas that you're supposed to do is teach them the fard ayn. So I know a lot of Muslims who were not told any of these things, and they just thought they were praying right. And I think those people, inshallah, I would just, I would say, make tawbah, just ask Allah inshallah to excuse you for your ignorance and to accept those prayers. But I wouldn't, Allahu A'lam, I wouldn't, I think that might be. Raghiba is no. Some of the ulama say you do the nafila of at least 2 rakats of Maghrib. There's a khilaf about that. Do you know anything? About the rakat after Maghrib. No, to make them up. Not to make them up, but if you should continue doing them. I think there's a khilaf, I'm not sure if it's mashhur or not, but definitely the witr and the raghiba should be done in spite of fard prayers owed. What do you mean? Yeah, if you have time to make up your prayers, that's what you should be doing. Ibadah should go to the fard. ما تقرب إلي عبدي بشيء أحب إلي أو أحب إلي مما افترضت عليه. My servant doesn't draw near to me be anything more beloved to me than the fard. So fard is over everything. Really. If you're doing nafila and you're fard, you're wasting your time.
You have to do your salat in order that you miss them? You do Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib in that order, or you do 5?
No, if they're less than 5, then you should do them in order. Right? If they're more than 5, then you should you just do them at the time. For instance, if you owe tartib, order is obligatory if it's less than 5. If it's more than that, then you don't have to do them in order. And some of the ulama say if you owe a lot, then what you do is you just pick a certain amount, at least 5. So you do 5 prayers at Dhuhr, 5 prayers at Asr, 5 prayers at Maghrib, 5 like that. So you don't have to do them in order. Is the bus here? Yeah. Okay, and Jazakumullah khairan.
Can I go ahead and for a second?
Oh.
For that, so you're going to get our course.
Yeah.
The announcement, take exam, collect some money for your student, Mauritania, collect some books.
Oh, okay. Inshallah, a couple of, one, I want to, because this is the last class, for people that are going on the intensive, Jazakumullah khairan, and tawfiq inshallah, and I wanted to thank all of you for the attendance and the respect and the just the general good spirit that's been present throughout the whole course. And excuse me for any shortcomings or any breaches of courtesy, and make dua also.